Some time ago, I wrote some thoughts on commitment. And I said the most important thing in life is to establish our relationship with God. I did not know most of my early years that it was possible to have a relationship with God. As a matter of fact, I didn't even believe there was a God to have a relationship with, but I certainly was not aware that it was within the realm of possibility for any human being to have a conscious contact and a personal relationship that would permit wonderful things to occur in that person's life. I didn't know that. And then I came to know that the single most important matter that concerned me was to establish and maintain my conscious relationship with God, and that I could not achieve this state of being, nor could I maintain it unless I placed it first. My commitment, therefore, required me to value this relationship above all things. Now, valuing my relationship with God above all things did not mean that I lost my perspective, or my identity, or lost all other things. What it really meant was that I would be able to gain a new perspective and have all the things that I had been denying myself throughout my life. The only way to achieve and to become that which I need to become is to place my relationship with God above all the things that I had valued, to change the order of my values. Now, strangely enough, the statement that I just made is not a religious statement at all. It is a practical, logical, spiritual statement. And the first requirement for this new experience in higher consciousness is to surrender the emotions of anxiety and fear. And if you will recall the lessons that we've been sharing together prior to this evening, we've been going through this process of relinquishing our anxiety, our fear, the negative emotions. Surrendering our suffering is one way that we've been describing it. Matthew, the 6th chapter, the 34th verse. So don't be anxious about tomorrow. God will take care of your tomorrow, too. Live one day at a time. In other words, move out of the past, releasing it. Don't get hung up in the future. Be in this now moment. And that's what I invite each one of us to do, is to come into this now moment so that we can go into action to do the things that ought to be done by us. And the first order of things, if one wishes to enter into that dimension of higher consciousness, the first order of action is not to go dashing off out into your world to begin to fulfill your responsibilities, but the first order of action is to establish the right consciousness from which you move to assume those responsibilities. First within and then without is the universal order. I must be in my higher mind, in my right mind. Otherwise, everything that evolves from me will be self-defeating. But strangely enough, if I'm in my right mind, if I have put on that higher identity, then everything that I do, everything that happens to me, will work for my good, even if at a particular moment it does not appear to be so. And my point is this. In our ordinary human condition, we always end up failing, even when it appears that we're succeeding. In our extraordinary spiritual condition, we always end up winning, even in moments when it appears that we're losing. And that's incredible. And I didn't know that for years. And no one told me. Wouldn't have made any difference. I wouldn't have believed it anyhow. But now I know that it's true. And it's true because we live in an intelligent, responsive, caring universe. And we live in this presence that we have called the mastermind. It's just a term that we use. to define an infinite presence, or God. If you don't like mastermind, then select your own word or terminology. God is all, both visible and invisible. One presence, one mind, one power is all. This one that is all is perfect life, perfect love, and perfect substance. Now, I am an individualized expression of God. Therefore, I am ever one with this perfect life, perfect love, and perfect substance. I just spoke a very important word. I am an individualized expression of God. I believe that I am, and I also believe that you are too. And the word individualized, to me, formerly meant separated from. I am my own individual. I'm a self-made person. Right? Wrong. That individual person, as I understood individuality, was the blind self of me that got me into the ditch. And then when I got out of the ditch on the right-hand side, you and I ended up together in the ditch on the left-hand side. The word individual or individualized literally means undivided or incapable of division or of separation. I am, by my very nature, incapable of being separated from my source. So the experience of separation has only come from the consciousness of separation or from the idea of separation, but not from the fact of separation. Therefore, I do not have to find God. I'm already one with God, because God is, and all of the great minds, mystics, and systems of thought, all the great religions have agreed upon three basic realities. Number one, that God is omniscient, meaning total knowledge. All the knowledge that exists is in and of the mind of God. There is no knowledge apart from God. There's not knowledge spiritual and knowledge human. There's only knowledge. There is only the truth. And you shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free. How would you like to have the mind of God fully functioning as your own mind? Would you like that? How would you like to reach the point that you can surrender thinking, other than making out a grocery list, something of that sort? You are functioning in a way, in a manner that dictates that you'll be at precisely the right place at exactly the right moment to do the things that need to be done by you, and you will know what you need to know as you need to know it. Would you like to live that way? Well, you're an individualized expression of omniscience, and in addition to that, it is universally agreed by people of higher knowledge that God is omnipotent, meaning having unlimited or universal power. As a matter of fact, the word omnipotent means all power. All of the power that exists in the universe is God. Now, wait a moment. I have never been separated from power. If this be true, then how did I end up in the ditch on the right-hand side of the road? How did I have all the troubles that I had? Was I separated from the power? No, I was never separated from the power. I misdirected the power. That's what happened to me. So now I have made a commitment to reestablish my conscious relationship with the Spirit of all power. And the third agreed upon truth is that God is omnipresent. Now this one is a real grabber. All of God is present everywhere. All power is present. All wisdom is present everywhere. See, we are so accustomed to dividing things. When we were children, we divided our marbles and our toys and our dolls, and to this day, remember when you were a kid and the one that sliced the piece of candy, the other one got to take the choice because you knew what would happen the kid that did the cutting got the biggest piece if you weren't careful. Man, when we divide something, we have to be careful where the middle is. But in spirit, you can't divide anything. It is all there. All of God is present and available to each one of us. Why do you think the Scriptures say that all that the Father has is yours? And it's all mine. All power, all intelligence, available to each one of us. Now there's one more great truth. God is omni-responsive. Omni-responsive, meaning the power that can not respond. If in the silence of this room there was suddenly a voice that cried out, "Help me, please help me," what would we do? We would turn and rush to the assistance of that person, would we not? Well, that's the very lowest level of the response of God. There's something in you, this tenderness in you, this lovingness in you that just cannot help but wrap its arms around your beloved. And that is the most significant power of God. God responding to you and to me the moment that we fulfill the conditions. And what we're doing in working with this mastermind concept is we are walking through these steps in higher consciousness that will carry us into the fourth dimension, or that kingdom of higher awareness, transcending our ordinary state, lifting us out of the normalcy of our lives. And it's important to remember that each person's life must become a lesson or an experience in truth. You are a small universe, a microcosm. The large universe is a macrocosm. It is the body of God. But you're also the body of God. If all of God is already in you and in each one of us, then we must become that truth made visible, and by that I mean that our lives must become living examples of the truth, of what really does exist, of omnipresence, omniscience, all wisdom, all knowledge, and all power, going into action to cause a whole new series of cascading, exciting, joyous, creative events taking place in that person's life the moment that they become dedicated to living in this new way. Jesus Christ had so much power because of what he did. He became the truth of which he spoke. He did not just sit in the lotus position discussing a philosophy. He said, watch this. He visualized a thing, felt it, believed that a power greater than himself. He always said, it's the Father within me that doeth these works. Okay, I'm ready. Pow, God, Lazarus, come forth, or be healed. Your blindness is gone. And the demonstration was made. Isn't that true? Now that gets your attention. You and I understand this. How many people have we heard talking or speaking in our lives, or teaching? When you were in school, you perhaps had a teacher somewhere along the way that taught a class, and you knew that if they were out in the world living that subject, that they couldn't make it. They were not what they taught. Your life must become living proof that you know what you're talking about because you are what you're talking about, and you're not talking about love. You don't even have to say the word, but people in your presence feel it so deeply that they're transformed or comforted or healed or changed. You are love. Do you believe in prosperity? Do you believe in it? Do you believe that all that the living universe has to share is yours to experience? Okay. Then if you and I believe in it, our lives must become living reflections of that truth, that we believe. And this does not mean that next week that any one of us is expected to have about $1.5 million in our checking account. But what it does mean that we go into action to do the things that need to be done by us so that we become living reflections, demonstrations, that this incredible miracle-working power is expressing itself creatively, creating new channels, new opportunities, bringing new dreams, new visions into our mind that become living reality, living fact. And you and I will not have this experience, number one, unless we give up our anxiety, begin to believe that a power greater than ourselves, an infinite power, can perform through us and transform us in the process, and unless we also are willing to work with other persons. You see, nothing great is ever achieved or maintained without the use of the mastermind principle. And the mastermind principle requires that two or more people work together in a spirit of harmony, giving to each other that which they seek for themselves. One of the great laws is that you cannot keep what you do not share, what you do not give to others. And we really learn to give that which we would have to our mastermind partners, believing for them, hoping for them, actually giving with our mind the support, the love that we have always sought and never found. And suddenly we're not standing back in the corner waiting to have someone come and understand us. We have moved forward into relationships in which other person's good becomes uppermost in our mind. And we give of ourselves, of our time, and of our energy. Now, last week, we stopped our class, we ended our class on the fourth of the 8 steps, the 8 postures or positions that the mind must take in order to have this experience of higher consciousness. And if you will turn to your mastermind principle folder and turn to step 5, it's the step of forgiveness. Step number 5 of the mastermind principle: I forgive myself for all mistakes I have made. I also forgive and release everyone who has injured or harmed me in any way whatsoever. This is one of the giant steps that the human mind can and must take. Because here again we are up against a stone wall in our spiritual growth or in our ability to demonstrate. The mastermind, the mind of God, this universal spirit of love has said to each of us, you cannot have what you desire as long as you hold one other person in account. As a matter of fact, you cannot move from the level in which you find yourself. You will not go up in consciousness as long as you blame or judge or react violently toward any other human being, including yourself. And so now we have reached that point in our conscious awareness that forgiving is required. It is essential. We have no choice if we wish to experience our own good. Now listen to the lesson, to the statement made by one of the greatest teachers who ever walked on this planet when he was talking to his students. Now, if I said if he was talking to his disciples, you immediately might have gone into your religious mode and not heard me. We don't hear religious things. But here was a great teacher speaking to his students, and he said, okay, fellas, yesterday, when I passed that fig tree, I wanted to teach you a lesson. I wanted you to understand the power that exists when you think, visualize a thing, and put your emotions behind it. And so when we passed that fig tree, I walked over to it and I withered it. I saw it, I visualized it withering. And we walked back today, and I stepped back over to the same tree, and Peter, you noticed that it had withered up to its roots. I wanted you to see this for one reason. Not that I don't like trees. I love trees, especially fig trees. But I wanted you to see what happens with the negative use of the mind. Because if you understand what happens with the negative use of the mind, you can then begin to make the positive applications. Sometimes we can understand the positive thing better when we see the negative working. And his disciples asked him some more questions. In reply, he said, if you only have faith in God, this is the absolute truth. But wait a second, if you only have faith in God, does this mean if you have faith that God exists? Well, a lot of people believe that God exists, and nothing happens to them. No. He said, if you believe that the power that has formed the universe is responding to you. Remember in one of our earlier steps, we came to believe that the mastermind was responding to us? He said, if you believe that God is responding to what takes place in your mind, then this is the absolute truth. You can say to this Mount of Olives, rise up and fall into the Mediterranean, and your command will be obeyed. All that's required is that you really believe and have no doubt. Exclamation point. All right. This step then goes on to say, listen to me, you can pray for anything, and if you believe you have it, it's yours. But wait a moment, wait. When you're praying, first forgive anyone you're holding a grudge against. It does not count. You cannot believe. It will not work until you forgive other persons. And the word forgive means to absolve or to pardon. To pardon, someone really did something to you, didn't they? They weren't very nice, they weren't very kind. They promised you that you and they would live happily ever after. And look what happened. They lied and they cheated and they went against their word and golly, it was all their fault. Now suddenly you have assumed total responsibility for your own life, and it is not their fault. And you are required to pardon them. And to pardon them means to absolve completely, to release them from total responsibility to the worst action that they ever performed against you. How do you like that? It comes from the word to give, which means to give up, to surrender, and to renounce anger or resentment in any form. Last week I was talking to an executive who functions at a very high level, and he was telling us a remarkable story of his progress up the ladder of success, and he reached a point in his life when he just had a job that he was, as a very young man, the top of the executive ladder. And a friend of his enticed him to change, to give up that position, to take a better one in the service of mankind in a different city, and he did so. And no sooner was he there, and he and his wife had sold their home and they had moved to the new city, then his friend came and said, I'm sorry to tell you this, but the position no longer exists because I have changed my mind. I have betrayed you. And this man could not go back to his former position, and there was nothing to go forward to, and he was trapped, lost, betrayed by his friend. You know how he might have felt? But through some remarkable spiritual ability that he did not know he had, he felt no rancor and no blame. He set that other person free and did not blame him. And because he did not blame him, he now looks back and can see that his lack of blame, the power of forgiveness, brought into action an incredible series of events that could not possibly have occurred if he had spent his energy and time blaming and feeling sorry for himself. And through the power of serendipity, the mastermind working, he suddenly found himself moving forward and upward into a position that exceeded his wildest imaginings. It could not have happened without forgiveness. Notice that this step also says, I forgive and release. Release means to set free from confinement, resentment, bondage, to liberate, to relinquish a right. You do not have the right to lie to me. my mind said. And you lied, and I will never forgive you. They'll never be the same. I release you and set you free, knowing that you've done the very best you could possibly do under the circumstances that existed. I understand for the first time how it is with you. And suddenly I'm under a new law. And release comes from the Latin meaning to relax, to let go. To let go means to let God. It means to let a power greater than myself come in to do for me the things that I cannot do. But I must forgive if I would move upward and forward into the next dimension of the spiritual realm. And the next step is choose. I choose health, happiness, prosperity, and total well-being for myself and all others. I make known my specific needs to my mastermind partners, asking the mastermind to fulfill these requests. Why is it important to choose health, happiness, prosperity, total well-being? Because so often in the past I have chose something less than that. I recall a time when I was just early on into my alcoholism and my fear was becoming fully formed in my mind, my sense of apprehension. And one day I was given an assignment that I did not feel adequate or capable of performing. And so I chose to be ill. Now, if you're feeling very well, if you're in a good state of health and you want to be sick, you have to work at it pretty good. And I really worked up a case of flu like you would not believe. I just worked at it. I was choosing. And I said, come on, feel bad so you really won't have to do that thing. And I succeeded. Would you believe that I got exactly as sick as I decided to be? Well, now, I chose unhappiness. Why, I chose all kinds of things that you could do to make me less than happy. Shape up, and you didn't shape. Conform, and you didn't form. And I didn't like it. I had a patterning in my life in which all manner of things could impinge upon me, and my response was less than joyful. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Okay. I chose unhappiness. Prosperity? Did I choose prosperity? I chose all kinds of thoughts to say that I was less than prosperous. I chose all kinds of imaginings. I saw my checks bouncing, and they bounced. And I fixed that. I got 2 bank accounts. And so that I could write a check and run to the bank, and before it, then I had 3. It was like having 3 balls in the air, and you can't juggle. But I had all kinds of images that were less than prosperous. So I had to learn to choose, and I now choose health, happiness, and prosperity. It's very important to know that to choose is to select from a number of possible alternatives, to decide upon and to pick out, to prefer above others, to want, to desire. And I choose my good. I desire my good. And I select that good. And I announce to my mastermind partners in our meeting together that these are the things that I need at this moment. These are the miracles that I cannot believe in yet, but help me believe. I believe, but help my unbelief. Help me to believe that the mastermind is going to perform this thing or these things for me. And it's very important that we make this choice, because once a negative choice is made, the subjective mind must accept, adopt, and create the former choice. A choice remains active until canceled, negated, or released. And so a negative choice made many years ago, poverty, unhappiness, and dis-ease in any of its forms, is a remaining choice in the subjective mind until we choose again, until we cancel or negate the former choice. That's why it's important to make the choice now for health, happiness, prosperity, and total well-being for myself and all other persons, including the people that I thought had harmed me. Sometimes when I'm speaking to singles groups, I will make the point that you have to choose total good for your former spouse's attorney. And if you can make that choice, you're on your way to the kingdom of God. I can tell you, you are there with one foot inside the door. Choose means to select, to pick, to fancy, to embrace, to single out, to settle upon, to opt, to resolve. It's important that we choose. You've been given the power of choice, and that choice must be made in the present moment with power. Step number 7 is gratefully accepting. I believe this good I have chosen is being supplied. So I assume the feelings I would have if my requests were already fulfilled. Have you ever tried to give something to someone and they didn't want it? I can give you an example that you can relate to. Did your cat ever have kittens? Did you ever try to give away a litter of kittens? You want my little kitten? It's a cute little kitten. You never saw a cuter kitten in your life. Just hold this cute kitten. I don't want to hold a cute kitten. I don't want a cute kitten in my house. It's hard to give away a kitten, isn't it? Do you know that God has had more trouble giving us our good than we have given away a litter of kittens? We don't accept our good. We reject our good. We have all reasons for not accepting our good. We're not worthy of our good. Can't handle our good. We're frightened of success. But nothing can be given that is not first accepted. And the word accept to me means to receive gladly, to take willingly, and comes from the Latin to take to oneself. Now, it's very important to have a group of mastermind partners who want you to receive your good, because frequently we accept the good for our partners before they'll accept it for themselves. This happens all the time in a powerful mastermind group. You will observe your partners reluctantly embracing their good. They don't know whether they can handle it or not. But you accept it for them. You take it to yourself for them, and it becomes their experience. How would you feel if the miracle that you needed had already transpired? How would you feel? Would you feel excited, delighted? Would you? Then let that feeling come alive in you and give thanks. And thanks is not just 2 words, but it is that feeling of gratitude. Let's you and I, let's all of us, go through these mastermind steps. Let's have a mastermind meeting. Now, if we were in a small group of 3 or 4 people, and you would ask me to be the chairman of this meeting, I would go through these steps myself and have each of my mastermind partners speak and respond openly in that group. Since there are too many of us to do that openly, since we will not have the opportunity to have you express yourself in words, you will still be able to do so because you will take these steps with me. All of us will take them together. And then, instead of speaking, when you have taken a particular step, you will nod your head in the affirmative that you have. But when you nod your head, you must have the feeling rising up. There must be the feeling part of you that agrees that you've taken that step. Now, we have already agreed upon the fact that there's a miracle-working power that can transform, create, cause incredible, remarkable things to take place. I know this is true because I'm looking at some people in this room who have recently experienced and demonstrated remarkable miracles. Now, do you believe that it's possible for you and for everyone present here tonight to have such an experience, as a matter of fact, a series of miracle experiences? Do you believe that we're all miracle-minded and quite capable of creating, through the power of the mastermind, those events? Do you believe so? And if you do, indicate that you do by nodding your head. Then we're working together in a spirit of harmony. And the first step that I take is that I admit to you that of myself I am powerless to solve my own problems, powerless to improve my life, and I need help. So this morning when I got out of bed, I was so tired that of myself I could not arise. And Karen, my wife, is sitting right there. And that's a fact, isn't it? And I took this first step. I admitted that I did not have the power, the ability the strength, the energy to do the things today that needed to be done by me, and that I needed the support of my friends, of Karen, and of the mastermind. And I asked for that help. I admitted that I needed it, and I asked. Now, that is the surrendering. Of myself I can do nothing, but a power greater than I can. I take that step before you now. And if you join me in the step of surrendering, indicate that you do by nodding your head. We've taken the first giant step in the reduction of the ego, the persona, the purely human psyche. I now come to believe that a power greater than myself, an infinite creative intelligence, the mastermind, is responding to me in a personal way. And the key thought is responding. The mastermind exists, but it's responding to me and responding to you. Omni-responsiveness, caring, loving. I believe that the God that formed this universe is reforming and reshaping my life and filling me with energy and strength and incredible abilities. And will do for me whatever it is that needs to be done by me. I believe that for me, and I believe it for you. That's not just a statement I believe that I made. It is the confirmed conviction of my mind. And if you believe that God is responding, indicate that you do by nodding your head. The third step is that I now realize that erroneous self-defeating thinking has been the cause of my problems, my failures, my unhappiness, and my fears. And I'm ready to have my belief system completely altered so that my life can be transformed. I want to be changed. I want my life to become a completely different experience. I'm willing to go to any lengths, even to the lengths of being willing to have my entire system of thinking, all of my emotional responses, reordered. If you're willing to be changed, indicate that you are by nodding your head. There's nothing in your mind that you would defend. You're no longer saying, well, I know that, meaning you can't convince me of anything. Is that correct? Step number 4. I make a decision to turn my life over to the care of the mastermind, surrendering my will and false beliefs, and ask to be changed at depth. And I'm saying, God, change me. Speak, Lord, thy servant heareth. Make me over into that perfect self that you have created. I hold back not one area of my life, not one commitment. If you turn every part of your life, every corner of your world over to the care of the mastermind, indicate that you do by nodding your head. Step number 5 is I forgive myself for all the mistakes I've made. You know, it's remarkable as I look back. I did the very best I possibly could under the circumstances that existed at the time, as far back as I can remember. But I still made what appeared to me to be many, many mistakes. Some very serious mistakes. I discovered that I do not have the right to not forgive myself. As a matter of fact, one of my great responsibilities, and it's a responsibility that comes from maturity, is the capacity to forgive myself and to release all guilt. And I do so. Can you forgive yourself for the worst thing you've ever done? What's the worst thing you've ever done? The thing that you've been clutching to your bosom, feeling guilty about, not wanting anyone else to know. Release it. Set yourself free from that confinement. Release your guilt. Forgive yourself. Liberate yourself. And the moment that you do, indicate that you have by nodding your head. The great law is to love thy neighbor as thyself. I also forgive and release every person who has injured or harmed me in any way whatsoever. They may have meant it for my disadvantage. They may have been unkind and thoughtless. Does not matter. They were doing the very best they possibly could under the circumstances that existed. And I forgive them because unless I do, they still have power over me. And I take away the power that I've given them by forgiving them so that I can enter into a new law, a new dimension of mind. Forgive us our trespasses exactly as we forgive those who trespass against us. And so, therefore, I will not remain at the level of the bitter and of the resentful. I will rise into the realm of the loving and the generous. I forgive all others. And the moment that you have forgiven the last one of them, indicate that you have by nodding your head. Step number 6, I choose health, happiness, prosperity, and total well-being for myself and for all others. Do you do that? Setting aside the false choices that I've made, choosing to be a whole person. And to you, my mastermind partners, I make known my specific needs. And there is one thing that, for example, I would ask. I have a responsibility here at this church in my position of leadership. And we are in need of the money to finish paying off the bills that we have. Now, you can believe for me better than I can believe that that is going to happen. Do you believe that my request is being responded to, that the church of today is healthy, happy, prosperous, and its total well-being exists through the power of the Spirit of God working through each and all of us and through people that we have not yet met? Do you believe that? Well, the moment that you believe it, I believe it. So you can believe for me something that I'm not quite capable of believing for myself. Now, you notice how easy it was for you to believe that for me? Now, think, if you will, of your own special needs, your own special request, your own miracle. See it clearly in your mind. Define it quickly in the silence of your being and ask that it be given to you. Choose it. Choose it. Desire it. Select it. Embrace it. Do you do that? Then I, your mastermind partner, and all of the other mastermind partners in this room, several hundred of us, believe for you that your choice is God's choice for you, and that it is given to you in this moment, as you have believed. Remember when the master teacher said, by your own faith it is done. Now, the moment that you believe that your miracle has occurred, indicate that you do by nodding your head. In that moment, was it accomplished? How would you feel if 1,000 miracles were presented to us at this moment? How would you feel? Like a child receiving a gift from a parent. You know the feeling of freedom and of joy? Feel that feeling. And as you do, say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. In this moment, we have completed a covenant. We've signed a contract. We've sealed that contract. A covenant is a contract, a binding agreement made by 2 or more parties. And all that is required of us is that we dedicate ourselves, and I dedicate myself now to live this life. My conscious contact with God and the maintenance of that relationship in this 4th dimension of this kingdom of God is the most important thing in my life, and I'm committed to walk out into my world with a spirit of enthusiasm, excitement, and expectancy, believing that the good that you and I seek will be our experience. Do you join me in that commitment? And if you do, indicate that you do by nodding your head. I am at peace. And we can go our way, my beloved partners, rejoicing. Your life is like a lamp that was destined to be placed on a high stand so that the world around you can see it shining. And it will behold your light because you're the light of God, the beloved, in whom God is well pleased. And that's the way it really is. God bless you.
This concludes the lesson on side B of tape number 3. Now proceed to tape number 4 for the continuation of Masterminding, the Way to Success and Happiness.